Welcome to my channel. Everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another day of Vlogmas. Today is going to be slightly different. I'm not going to be doing a walkthrough. I do have to pick up some ingredients for a gingerbread cookie recipe. Yes, gingerbread man. That is the one recipe I did not tackle last Christmas. And so I think I'll just add that to my agenda this year. And I'm going to try to make them tonight. So we'll have to see how this all pans out. Also, I'm going to be taking you along with me to purchase a little butter. I don't normally use butter at all, ever. But for this recipe, I will need that, about 130 grams worth. And so I'll be doing that as well. I'll take you into the store with me. And hopefully I'll find unsalted butter, which is what the recipe does call for. And now, sometime between the store and going home and all that, because I am filming three other vlogs today. So I do want to launch a new missing kid case, which ended up ultimately being a case where the child was found transpired. And so this is the case that is not concerning, it does not concern the McCann suspect at all. And so he would have been two young guys. He was just not around. And so this is just the story of little Rachelcharles, a British family, a British girl who resided in Portugal. And I'm not sure about the location or the area in proximity to where Madeleine McCann vanished. So I'm going to leave that up in the air for now. This is a multi-part discussion on Rachelcharles. And so when I say Rachelcharles, I don't want you to think of Billy Ocean's daughter, Rachelcharles. It's not that Rachelcharles. Also, her father, Ray Charles, is not Ray Charles, the singer, but in fact another Ray Charles who worked and resided as Rachel's stepfather during the time that she was abducted and done away with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to launch a bit of the story now, and I'm not sure if I'll finish it. I won't finish the entire story, but the first part. I don't know if I'll finish it all in one sitting or if I'll do the rest at home while I'm making the cookies. You know what I'm saying? Making gingerbread men for me is a quite hairy experience, so I'm not sure that I'll be able to sit down and talk freely at that time. So I'll try to get out as much as I can right now. And I do have to leave because this area there's a lot of swimmings here. I thought it would be okay, but it's not. So hold on. Okay, so let's get started. Now, little Rachelcharles was only 9 years old when she went missing one warm November day in 1990 as she walked home from school. More about that a little bit later on. And so the little girl's stepfather, Raymond Derek Charles, had never been very popular in the area where they live, Valenavio, Portugal. He was a very big man with a pretty abrupt and blunt manner and a quick temper. And so he was rather inclined to boast about all the acres of land that he did own, or thousands of pounds of money that he had stashed away in the bank, when everyone knew he was more or less pretty much broke. And so I don't know why he did that, guys. I guess maybe he had issues. So anyway, there was also a rumor that Ray had changed his name and that he was on the run from something that he had done in England. And so that was rumor. Everyone knew that he drank way too much and had a pretty bad temper. There was also a lot of talk around that surrounding region of how Ray treated his daughter Rachel, his stepdaughter, and it was discussed that his treatment of her was ill-mannered and not at all pleasant. He had a lot of how do I say? He had a lot of negative talk about him. He was very highly criticized for his treatment of his stepdaughter Rachel. And so those were the circumstances surrounding Ray Charles, the father of the missing child. And so what happened was, I see a lot of Calvin Hoover in this Ray Charles, although nothing has been proven against Ray Charles whatsoever, unfortunately, one way or the other. So Ray was jealous of Rachel's attentions to her mother and jealous of her mother's attentions to Rachel. He wanted, I guess, to turn his wife against their daughter Rachel, his stepdaughter Rachel. Now, That's why I see a lot of Calvin Hoover in this gentleman, because a man doesn't use a child, a real man doesn't use a child as a weapon for anything. And so, even if she was misbehaved, I don't know. I never knew the child. I've never heard of anything. Whether or not she was a delinquent, he was obviously using Rachel to get even with his wife in some way. And that is what I perceive to be very psychotic and neurotic behavior. It can really get out of hand and become very ugly if issues are not properly dealt with. And I would assume that the family had some ongoing troubles before Rachel went missing. So I'm just saying here, this is the situation. It wasn't perfect. And so, to unravel this story, it is very necessary for us to go back a little um, and to really understand the place where it all happened. And that would be a place called Valenavio. And it all went down 20 years ago when tourism began to flourish there. So tourism really changed the landscape of this wonderful resort, and it was actually a mere 82 acres of scrubland and bleach grass that grew over the sea, right beside the sea on the Algarve coast of Portugal. And it was nothing really special at that time to anyone except to the local peasant farmers who happened to picnic there maybe and graze their goats there. That's what it was, guys. It wasn't a flourishing and bustling resort the way it is today. And so now, Valenavio is a great big timeshare complex in Europe, just like my old home abroad. Not in Europe, in another country, but I understand how these things develop and unfold. And so that complex is made up of villas, apartments, roads, shops, pools, bars, restaurants, and it has earned more than £30 million for certain developers. So it was big money, and of course, along with that, very big trouble. And so we have all seen glimpses of those beautiful villas through the Ocean Club complex that they were always associated with the story of little missing maddiemccann. So, let's get on to the introduction of the suspect before we actually get into the disappearance of Rachelcharles. And so, this would be a small framed gentleman by the name of Mick Cook, who arrived in Valenavio in 1989 with his wife and a suitcase containing $63,000 in pounds, bad debt, and he was just a Cockney Brit raised in Essex with a teenage history of petty theft, like our prime suspect, and punch-ups. A ducker and diver, a cash-only man born to fiddle. And that means he was always trying to pull off a scam. And so if he bought a car, he messed around with the paperwork. If he made a profit, he messed around with the tax returns. If he told you it rained or it was raining, that meant he was in the business of selling umbrellas. All that despite the fact that his own family was a very hardworking an honorable family. He actually worked in the trade of painting cars and spraying cars, and he was in that business. He was in the business of restoring cars. However, he was usually on the wrong side of the law. All the deals were. He really only had a knack for looking out for the shadiest kind of deal. He was always looking out for number one. You know what I'm saying? When it came to money, he didn't respect anybody. He just wanted to make a buck. And so, the thing that I want to impress upon you was that he wasn't a big city gangster. He was a small town, I don't know what you want to call him. He was a small town scam artist. He wasn't really that intelligent. He wasn't into weapons or guns or, you know, he wasn't like that. He was no match for the big time gangsters that were running the criminal scene in Portugal at that time. So, in other words, he didn't go there with the same purpose that some of these other criminals who got involved with real estate actually were. He was different from them. He wasn't very involved in that big real estate scheme. So I'm hoping that I impressed that upon you. He wasn't part of that big criminal ring. So when he did move to the Algarve, he bought himself a red Triumph TR7, but he never registered it. And he started panel beating in a local garage, and he just began running safari tours on the side for tourists, but he never really made things happen that way for himself. He was always kind of small time, behind the scenes kind of a person. He wasn't very upfront about anything or everything. And so I don't think he was any match for the real criminal ring that does exist there. Socialized with other Brits in pubs and bars and restaurants such as the Wonky Donkey. And that summer, previous to, I believe it was 1990, previous to the vanishing of little rachelcharles, his marriage just collapsed. And within a year, guys, of arriving there. And so he must have been really hard to live with. And so he moved out of Valenavio into a flat in Albufeira, another city. So he didn't really fare very well. And so, you know, throughout these years and in those days, in Portugal, very powerful gangsters did move in behind very respectable and honorable businessmen who ran the country, and they simply gutted it of cash. So even the most respectable businesses, guys, had criminals behind the scenes. It is almost as though you couldn't have a business unless you couldn't have an honest business and operate it on the up and up unless you have these characters, you know, coming in the back door and taking what they could off of you. So I would say that it was a pretty corrupt place all around for everybody, not just tourists and not just people coming from other countries to live there. You know what I'm saying? It was just not a very good place to raise a child, maybe. And I'm very familiar with this next fact, and that is that no matter who went to Portugal to purchase and get into these contracts with these beautiful villas and these beautiful apartments, the property that they purchased would never be theirs. It would belong ultimately to the bank for their use, for their exclusive use, hopefully, and not have to go through what I went through. But it was never to belong ultimately to the owner who bought it and paid money and taxes and maintenance on it. No, it wasn't really theirs. It was the bank's. And so all this money making attracted the worst of the worst. It attracted criminals from Britain. It attracted a group of gangsters from Spain in the 1980s. And, up until very recently, they were all taking £1,000 a week off of property managers in order for the property managers to stay alive. Guys, this is brutal. If you didn't want to die of a broken neck or broken bones, you had to give them £1,000 a week. Yeah, a week. I'm trying to imagine it, but where is the police in all this? This is the Algarve. And so, ultimately, I hope I'm driving my point home and alerting you to the fact that the area where little Rachel Charles grew up in and vanished from had seen it all. Corruption, shady deals, fraud, murder, all kinds of schemes and scams and crime. You don't even want to go there. And I'm not going there. So I'm going to leave it at that. And for now, I'm going to pick up this story probably a little later on, or maybe in another vlog, because I have to get to the store before dark. So I'll see you there. Everybody, so I'm back home now, and I'm going to show you exactly how I make these cookies. Now You could mix these ingredients by hand, but the actual dough, I made it by hand last year. You can use it, you can beat it and mix it with the hook of a dough machine, which is what I have, and later on I'll pull it out. But first I'm going to mix all the ingredients together, and it actually calls for bringing in the honey, the sugar, and the spices to a boil. You have to just add those ingredients into a pot and bring them to a boil, and then turn off the heat, and then add the baking soda and stir. And then in goes the butter, stir, an egg, stir, and flour. And then after all that is mixed, it's time to knead it with the hook. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to first heat up those ingredients and bring them to a boil, and then we'll take it from there. By the way, I bought this. I bought these decorations, and they're all a little different. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, you know, make the gingerbread men and then maybe decorate them. However, this guy, not like this. They're two different things. And I was kind of hoping this would work, but it's for ice cream sundaes. But it's giving me ideas. And it is so delicious, you would not believe. Anyway, I can't use this. So I have to go out again and look for other frosting in a dark color. And, you know, maybe I'll just have to play it by ear again this year, because it's very difficult to find the right colors. Anyway, I just thought I would let you know I bought the wrong thing. the recipe calls for between 300 and 400 grams of flour, which is just under a cup. But I went ahead and put in at least, it's now just over a cup, because it was not firm enough. And so I'm giving it another go with the hook, and we'll have to see how this turns out, because it's supposed to form into a ball, and it was just not doing it. So obviously the flour it varies, and the flour that I'm using is all-purpose flour, so maybe I needed cake or pastry flour. That's probably the issue, I'm not sure. In any case, there wasn't enough flour, so I thought maybe we would leave the rest of the story about Rachelcharles for another day, because I'm just going to simply show you the finished product, and I'll show you what they look like after they're baked. And then the decorating, I have to leave it for another day, because I don't have the right ones, the right frostings, so we'll have to leave it for another day. And anyway, that's not too important. So I'm gonna get on with the cookies. So I have about 5 more minutes left while the dough refrigerates. It's supposed to refrigerate for between 30 minutes and an hour. It's been almost a half an hour, and I have to say that I had to add much more flour. So instead of 300 to 400 grams of flour, I would imagine I put between 500 or so, maybe even 2 cups of flour, because I think what happened is that the butter that I bought was too moist and too creamy, but it's still butter, and so I had to add more flour. That's no big deal. It became a sticky mess, but I finally got it into a ball, and all I have to do now is roll it out. So let's just wait and see what the dough looks like when it comes out of the refrigerator.